everyone, and welcome to episode 3030 of Star Wars Newsnet Live. I am joined today by Jay and Mr. Brian. Jay, how are we doing today? It's been a while.
I am doing fantastic. Just got back from a little trip off of the island of Hawaii to Arizona, and I'm refreshed. I am ready to talk Ahsoka and the entire season as a whole. It's going to be a good time tonight.
And Brian, the beard's still going strong, it looks like.
So far. I actually thought about cutting an inch of it off. I don't know. Let me guys know in the comments. Should I cut an inch and a half off my beard? I really don't know.
Great. It looks great either way.
I kind of like the nickname the Bearded Wonder. I like that.
That is a great nickname. Let's
right?
keep it. Yeah.
I like that.
So we are going to start this off. We're going to talk Ahsoka. We have a new segment that we're going to introduce every other Wednesday. And this segment was born out of me just sitting around kind of a little bit bored the other day and flipping through my Clone Wars character encyclopedia. And I have it right here in front of me. And so we are going to play a little game of whatever random character I open up to before we begin Star Wars Newsnet Live. I'm going to throw it at you, and you're going to be forced to tell me your favorite moments of this character in their time. Now, I will tell you, this character encyclopedia has a lot of random people. Luckily for us today, and I'm Brian, you can cue up the picture.
All right, here we go.
Today's random Clone Wars character is none other than Gregor himself, who is seen in both Clone Wars here. And we see Gregor, obviously, later on. Yes, so we have...
I was like, who is that?
It's Gregor. And so for the audience who's unfamiliar with Gregor, let me read you just a short little bit from his time in Clone Wars, where you see he was Commando CC 557639. He disappeared during the Battle of Sarish, was considered dead, but the former officer survives, winding up on the Outer Rim planet Abafar with no memory of his past. You may be thinking, where have I seen this before? And that was when D Squad, led by Republic Colonel Meber Gascon, helped Gregor rediscover his true identity. And then all soldiers are meant to do, he lays his life down to help them escape. And Gregor's story was not over, though, because he returns in Rebels. And we see him with Rex and company later on. So, Jay, Brian, Gregor, favorite Gregor moments. Gregor, what are your favorite Gregor moments? What are your impressions of the character? We're about to do about a 2-minute deep dive into the world of Gregor Clone Commando CC 557639. Brian, I throw it to you.
Didn't he die in Rebels? Didn't he die right there at the end of Rebels in the finale? Or am I thinking of a different clone?
I think that was Wolf. Was it Wolf?
Was it Wolf? They're all the same. They all look the same to me.
Well, they are clones.
They're all the same guy.
They are clones.
I don't know, Jay. You go first, man. I've got to think. This is like that's like a deep cut. That's a Clone Wars deep track, man. I gotta really think about it.
I mean, I saw the picture. And I'm like, who?
Is that Jango Fett in disguise?
He was like a sushi chopper. He was like a sushi chopper on that
planet.
Oh,
that's right. He was working at the
like the barren wasteland. And the guy was like, "You are never leaving the shop. I
did the best I could to purge those those episodes from my memory.
The greatest,
the whole D Squad
arc of all time.
I don't know, Jay. You go first, man.
Man, all right.
Look at that! Like that's great. Look at that.
Oh,
wait.
Look
at that armor.
He gets
camo armor.
Yeah. Okay. Now I remember. I actually got super excited when they showed that off, and because I was a big Republic Commando fan as a kid, and when I saw the full Republic Commando armor and the battle damage look, I actually thought that was really cool. I'll say like that was my favorite moment of Gregor, and I remember like vividly as a kid watching like IGN and checking out like the first preview vid of Gregor, and it's just like him full blown commando armor taking down the droids all Republic Commando style. I was like, okay, that was actually really cool. So thank you for jogging my memory, and that
I mean, we got
really
Gregor.
helped.
He's there trying to help the droids escape. He's got
Yes.
his little blasters going. He's taken on,
I remember now.
dozens and dozens of droids. Now I don't know how he made it out of that, but it was his.
Well, Echo made it out too, and we don't,
Yeah.
thought he
It
was
like
toast also.
he got sucked in the world between worlds. He's the first clone to ever make it through, and he survived.
I just like the fact that he started working in a diner. He didn't know who he was, so he just went and got a part-time job at McDonald's, and I love it. Love it.
He's like, man, I have like all these like quick reflexes and stuff. I'm like chopping the sushi faster than everybody else.
There had to be moments, where like he would just randomly catch stuff, and they're like everybody looks at him. He's like, oh, and he sets it down. And they're like, are you a Jedi? And he's like, oh, no. Like,
he's like breaking up a fight over there. Someone tries to punch him, and he's just like,
yeah,
punches like,
yeah.
It's like when
somebody tries to
starts,
rob the kitchen.
It's like when Neo starts discovering some of his powers in the Matrix, and he's just like, whoa. And then on somewhere over there, you just see the guy that's in charge. It's like he's starting to believe, except he doesn't want him to believe. He's trying to take him down. Anyway, so thank you, Gregor, for your time
and your service.
You guys are so lucky because like the first one I could opened up till like I don't know Rift Hampson here. Oh, that would have been good. Rift Hampson. Remember the giant shark from Water Wars that was trying to start the war between the foreign?
Yeah.
Okay.
Man, anyway. That's obscure, man.
Anyway, here we go. We're going to talk all things Ahsoka tonight. We're going to kind of do a wrap up of the show in terms of our rating for the show as a whole. And then we're going to get into just 5 things that I didn't like and 5 things I did like from the season. And you guys can tell me, how smart I am and just how brilliant I was for coming up with these lists. And then we can just wrap it up because I'm sure that, no one could possibly disagree with my note taking that I did coming into
opinions on Star Wars. No
one's ever disagreed on Star Wars before. Can't imagine.
Kumbaya.
All right. So everyone in the chat, please like, subscribe, blast out the link to, where we're hanging out tonight to all your socials so people can come hang out and chat with us today. Quick Smoke definitely doesn't want Brian to get rid of the beard.
Fine.
Let it grow Viking style. Go Ragnar Lothbrok on that thing.
Yes.
Love that character.
I got the hair for it too. I can do the braid down the middle too, but it just gets in the way too much. Yeah.
So, real quick, Brian, we'll throw it to you. If you had to rate Ahsoka just out of 10 as a season, where it lies for you, what do you got?
I think last week we kind of touched on this, and I think I gave it a 7. But I'm gonna take that back and give it. Actually, I think I gave it a 7.5. So yeah, I think I'll stick with that. I'm gonna give it a 7.5. I thought it was pretty good. And it was above average, and as bad as that sounds, I really did enjoy it. It's just, it's above the mark for me. So it was, I enjoyed it.
Okay. Jay?
Brian, actually, like, we were hovering around the same number, and I decided on a 7.5 as well. I already did my review of the season overall on Star Wars Newsnet, so go ahead and check that out if you guys haven't checked it out already. But I think, like, I said this before, like, before the series even started, that, like, I wanted a good show most of all. Like, it didn't have to be spectacular. It didn't really have to, like, blow my mind. It didn't have to be, like, super amazing. I just wanted a good show that, was entertaining and fun to watch. And that's what we got. There's a lot of glaring issues. There's still a lot of room for improvement. But overall, I still had a lot of enjoyment. I think that just in general, Dave Filoni, when he makes something, it always ends up being improved upon later on as time goes on. So I think that, generally, like it was a good show, and I would give it a 7.5.
7.5 for both of you. I went 8. I really enjoyed it as a whole. I had fun every week. That's just my thing with Star Wars. Like if Andor wasn't exactly fun every week, it was this like gripping. So I kind of
slow
rated
burn.
different.
Yeah.
I kind of rated differently because I really enjoyed Andor. But with something like this, with the vibe is going for, I want to have fun. I want to feel like kind of moved, and I want the lore to kind of expand. And I felt like it did all those things pretty well. And so I was like, all right, you know what? It's going to get a B. It's going to be a B. Mr. Bradshaw's class, we're giving you a B. It's like 79.4, and we gave him the last little 0.1 to round up to the B for the class. So we're going to take it, and we're going to be happy about it. So that was kind of where I lied. So here we go. Do you guys want to start with the first thing I liked, or you want me to start with the first negative?
Start on the high notes.
Start on the high note. Okay.
Yeah.
So this one is kind of just a easy one to jump into. Number one for me, I thought Ahsoka, I don't know where I was going with that accent. Man, goodness. It's 11 o'clock, that's why. Ahsoka and Anakin's relationship and kind of the finality that we got there and the closure, I thought that was handled like beautifully, because the last we had seen of them was their fight on Malachor. And given all we have in the Clone Wars and what that relationship meant to both parties, with Anakin being redeemed in Return of the Jedi, it was really nice to kind of come full circle and that not be the last taste in our mouth from the two. And they kind of get that moment of teaching together, and then ultimately that understanding and Anakin looking over her. So I want to know, for you guys, was that something that did it for you, or was it lacking a little bit for you guys? For me, it was really great. I really enjoyed it. We'll start with you, Brian.
I'll agree with you. I really enjoyed it. It was a really good jumping off point from like what you said, from where we saw him last in Rebels. And knowing that Ahsoka was dealing with that kind of revelation the whole time, between that point and now, it was a really nice moment. And even seeing it be the pivotal point for her in her own show, kind of see her shift out of that gear a little bit. I thought it was great. I thought it was a great, what's the word I'm looking for? I guess picking up point from what we saw from Rebels.
Okay. And in the chat, go ahead, drop in where you think on these topics, as we're kind of diving into something from the whole season. But Jay, yes, go ahead.
No, I agree with you guys. I think that the whole relationship between Anakin and Ahsoka was handled really well in this series. And I think that, like, obviously the big theme of the show one of the big themes was Master and Apprentice. And much like Luke and Obi-Wan, Ahsoka and Anakin's Master and Apprentice relationship is handled so well that it's only just these spare moments. And that's what I think that stood out for me with this show was, Anakin is only in it for brief moments, just a few minutes, much like Obi-Wan after he becomes a spirit Force ghost. He only appears at these essential moments when Luke really needs it. And I think that was really great of the show to kind of provide. And I think, that's a great way to do cameos and to bring back these characters. And I think that, like we've seen in the previous shows in Book of Boba Fett and The Mandalorian, all of these cameos are kind of there for a purpose and for a reason, and they're not just like thrown haphazardly around.
They're building onto the story,
exactly.
like the plot. They're integral to the story, and it's not just. And that's a good point, because this is something I didn't like about Bad Batch season 1. Now it's really different to compare animation to live action, but Bad Batch season 1 was like Rex here, and then we had young Hera, and it was like then you have the Trace and Martez sisters, and so it's like you had all these like boom, 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 and it was just like, all right, who's gonna make it's like almost who's gonna be the celebrity guest of the week on the Bad Batch, and we had a lot of cameos like that in Ahsoka, like you're pointing out, Jay, but they all did fall in line with where we wanted to go. I really like that. That's good.
It was Dave Filoni's greatest hits.
I will add, I will add though that I wish there was a bit more build up, in my opinion, to the appearance of Anakin and to Ahsoka's redemption, because I think that, and I think I've said this before, when we're talking about the World Between Worlds episode, is that, you know, like the whole point of that of Anakin's lesson was to show like she needs to kind of go beyond what she was before and to, you know, like take on a different mentality beyond the warrior stuff. And to me, I didn't get like this conflicted version of Ahsoka that the story was trying to emphasize. You know, like I didn't in the previous episodes before that, I wasn't like, oh, is Ahsoka, you know, still trying to like move on? Is she like traumatized from the past? Like I didn't really get any of those notes. So that's kind of where I'm like, I kind of wish the setup and like showing that Ahsoka, like showing that actual change from who she was before to who she is later on. I kind of wish that was built up a little bit more though.
That's fair. I don't know. I think we, in terms of Ahsoka herself, I think we got a lot of that. I think that in terms of how that translated to her relationships with others, it needed a little bit more just expository content there. I don't think we really got that interactions with her and those characters as much as I would like. With her herself, though, I mean, we see her in the beginning. She's still fighting. She's just fighting to fight, even if she hasn't even met Thrawn. He's in another galaxy, we find out, and she's still fighting this fight. And I don't think that Ahsoka, I think when after she comes out of the World Between Worlds, when she's interacting with the Purgle there, like to me, that's like, this is a new Ahsoka. She would not have been able to do this, you know, before. But now she is focused and she is, you know, driven by this new mission of hers almost. And I think it does that without necessarily needing to give a big, you know, moment for her. I thought that was kind of like justification. What do you think, Brian? And then we'll move on to some negative.
I know, I completely agree with you. I think it had to happen. Excuse me. I think it had to happen the way it went down. And it worked for me. We all knew Anakin was going to end up popping up in this show, and we all, you know, every episode we were like, is this going to be the one? Is this going to be the one? Is this going to be the one? And then it was, boy, I hope it's not the next one. And then it was. And so I think it worked. I think he showed up right when he needed to. He could have waited a week and popped up at the beginning of an episode instead of the end of one. But, you know, I thought it worked really well.
All right, so this is not in order of like most loved to least loved or most hated to least hated or whatever. It's just kind of just list of 5 and a list of 5. So this is the first one we're going to talk about. This is something that, you know, number 1 for did not like in the show. Tell me what your thoughts were. Thought this didn't work out well. The show was built up to be Ahsoka as your main hero and Thrawn as the main villain. Those two people never interacted with each other the entire show. We had Thrawn talk with her at the end, basically kind of like a quick phone call of like, yeah, you suck, I gotcha. And then there was no interaction. There was no talking between the two. I felt like the show should have either had some sort of dynamic between those two characters, or they should have just saved Thrawn for the very end, cut him out of these like promos, and had just Balin be like just the main villain of the show, because they actually, you know, go after each other a couple times. And it felt like the show couldn't figure out who they really wanted their main villain to be, because if you're giving me Ahsoka as your main hero and Thrawn as your main villain, well, they've literally never spoken to each other in any form of, you know, television Star Wars. So what do you guys think? Were you okay with the dynamics between Thrawn and Ahsoka not really being there and what they did? Or you kind of are you with me on this where like, I just don't think it makes sense for these two to be the main points of both sides and never actually kind of intersecting?
I think the whole point of this show, honestly, and don't lynch me, everybody that loves this thing, because I love the show too. Don't get me wrong. I think the entire show was meant to be a setup for future projects. I think that's what this entire thing was. It was maneuvering pieces on the board to get him where Dave Filoni wanted him to be able to do what he's doing later. And I think that's all this show really was. Because from the very get-go, the mission was find Ezra, find Thrawn. And that's that was it. I mean, that was, and they got there, it was over. The whole series was basically one big Uno reverse card. Everybody that was in this galaxy got stuck in this one. Everybody that was stuck in this one got back to this one. So it was, I think it was all set up. As far as what you were saying about the villains, I think the right people were there that needed to be there. I don't think Thrawn was the main villain of this particular series. I definitely think that was more Morgan and Balin and Shin. I don't think it was Thrawn at all. I think he's the end game for later on. But like I said, it was all just maneuvering pieces for future projects. Somebody brought up, who was it? Words here brought up a comment. The show was all right, but he didn't like the sequel bait ending. The whole series at the very end of it, it just set up where everybody is going to be at for future stuff. We knew that they were going to find Thrawn. We knew Thrawn was going to get back. We knew they were going to find Ezra. The only thing that we didn't know by the end of it was where Balin was going to end up, where Shin was going to end up. What Ahsoka and Sabine were doing. We knew Ezra was going to get back, but that's all it was to me.
Okay. I have some thoughts. Jay?
No, I actually agree with Brian, and it's something I wrote in my review actually as well, which is I felt that there was so much going on, so many threads, so many plot threads, that it kind of felt a little bit unfocused. And hearing your thoughts on it, Brian, I wholeheartedly agree, because I think that in actuality, there was a lot of setup, and I felt like I don't envy Filoni's position, because I think that he had the unfortunate position of this being a series, like the culmination of decades of storytelling, but then he also has to catch up everyone on those decades of storytelling. And so how do you do that without it just being without it just being all over the place? With a lot of characters, like you guys said, there's Balin, there's Shin, there's Morgan, there's Thrawn, there's Ezra, and then some of it continues on into possible season 2 or into the possible next big movie, and so it's a lot, right? But as far as going back to your original point, Tyler, I think that like Brian said, Thrawn isn't the main villain now.
Then
And
who
it's
is
funny,
the main villain in the
right?
show?
Yeah.
I think that's the point.
Exactly.
Who is?
Yeah.
And so I think that you're totally right in saying that there is no real big villain. And it's funny that Brian, you called it Endgame. Like Thrawn is the Endgame. He's literally the Thanos of of the stars at the moment, at least. Who knows? They might change that
for
around.
This era, right?
Yeah. So I think that it'll be really interesting. I mean, I really agree with you, Brian. It was a lot of setup for stuff that is gonna be in the future, and like Roy said, like some people are gonna be okay with that, some people aren't, and I see it from both sides. I really do.
But I think therein lies the problem. With what I'm saying is that Thrawn wasn't necessarily, if you're saying he's not like the big bad in this whole thing. Something that's important to notice, though, is he's marketed like he's going to be the big villain. Like when they bring him out for Celebration, when they have him come out
that's my wife. Don't pay any attention to her.
Oh, okay. I was
That's
like, why are we
so
highlighting this
confused.
one individual?
Pay no attention.
I was so confused. And so I think that's the problem, though, is, in the trailer you have Thrawn. It's about the whole show from the beginning is about finding him and stopping him. And Ahsoka's our person. And then when we finally find Thrawn and we lead to them getting this galaxy and they're charging in, there's not a single moment where they're at least gonna like talk to each other. I mean, Thrawn, outside of his brief scolding, he kind of gives, Sabine, for you have risked the entire fate of your galaxy on that, whatever. It just feels like, I don't know, it just feels a little bit underwhelming, if we're going to say the least. because I want my characters, the stakes between my characters and the villain should be pretty high. They should be pretty intense. And the best way to do that is by having them like interact together. It just would be really weird if we showed up in Return of the Jedi and Luke had never interacted with Darth Vader before, or Rey and Kylo have never really hung out and talked until Rise of Skywalker. And so I'm just a little bit confused. If this is all this setup, then I think Thrawn, I think the dialogue, we deserved a little bit more justice there. But I see what you're saying, and I like the idea of where we're going. It just felt like for just the season as a whole, could have used more. But Jay makes a great point that a lot of times like Filoni's projects age well like over time. So like as we look at this maybe as a longer drawn out thing, that could be true, but who knows, because we have no idea where Ahsoka's season 2 could even launch us.
Filoni definitely does long, like slow burn stuff, like long-term stories. I mean, Rebels, he did it, even from Rebels, even working some on Mando and whatnot. So he likes to tell pieces of a story. And then by the time you get the whole story, it's like, then you binge it. And it's like, it's awesome. So,
and MB Wilson makes a good point here in the chat. He's like, was Ahsoka her own antagonist in season 1? It's about her inner conflict. I agree to a point, but I felt like that was resolved halfway through the season. And at that point, it's like when that's resolved and she's moving forward, it's like, okay, I looked at it like now she's ready to take on Baylan or Thrawn again, but neither one of those things really happened. What do you guys think?
I get where he's coming from.
Okay.
But like you said, halfway through, she got it figured out. She was reborn as the new Ahsoka you were talking about earlier. And we had a little bit of a fight with Baylan, but she ended up cutting ties and running after the carpet bombing. So,
all right, number 2 thing I like here. We're on things. We're back to the positive realm, and this one I think universally, like we're just gonna have like a little, wide-eyed, session here of love. This is gonna be a love fest.
Oh boy.
I felt like the casting for this series was phenomenal. I felt like from Emanis Isfandi, like being Ezra, like I thought he was an amazing Ezra. Like Natasha Liporizzo as Sabine was great. Ray Stevenson, the late great Stevenson was phenomenal as Baylan. I wrote Ivana like Sonko as Shin. We have Elizabeth Mary Winstead as Hera. And then obviously Rosario had already been Ahsoka a couple of times, but we really got to see her take on the role, in this show. And I felt like just across the board that they nailed the choices for who was going to play these characters, especially characters that are especially the ones that are making their appearance in live action. For those that can be tough for people. So overall, in terms of casting, my question for you is, one, just do you agree casting was solid? And then who was maybe your favorite 1 or 2, people to take on that we've seen in Star Wars now? Jay, we'll start with you.
100%. Great point, Tyler. I would say Lars Mikkelsen as Thrawn. Yeah, I mean,
But he's been Thrawn.
All right, I mean,
he's been Thrawn.
Sure, he was Thrawn already, but I mean, I think that like he really embodies the character. He's really great. And then like I remember, Filoni said in his in an interview during Star Wars Celebration why he casted Lars Mikkelsen. It's because and he said this in an interview when he's writing for Thrawn, he hears his voice when he's writing hit the character down, and I'm the same way. When I'm like, now that I'm going through the Heir to the Empire trilogy, I can't help but hear Lars Mikkelsen's voice whenever I hear Thrawn. So like I have to go with him. If I have to go like with a more like with someone
Tyler's
else
about to explode, dude.
Yeah, I know.
that comment by Filoni actually really pissed me off. Like it really pissed me off.
Wow, okay, let's hear it, Tyler.
Because like yes, he has an iconic voice, but like does Taylor Gray not have an iconic voice as like Ezra? Like I hear the Buffalo Wild Wings commercial and I immediately am like, Ezra is eating at Buffalo Wild Wings. Like,
Wait, that's
does
him?
Ashley Eckstein not have an iconic voice as Ahsoka? Like there's so many of these animated characters that have been put into live action now. And I get some of the reasons for not choosing to put them in, but it really makes like it's such an iconic voice that we couldn't. What are you saying to all the other voice actors that are iconic in Star Wars, that are beloved people that really didn't even get a look to portray their person in live action? To me, it actually made me like upset for some of those people that I felt like put their heart and soul into projects that are beloved by so many. And then we're just kind of like, all right, thank you. Now we're going to bring on the people for the real projects. Sorry,
I think Vanessa. No, you're good. Vanessa Marshall would have been, I think, a better Hera. And don't lynch me. Don't yell at me. I think she would have been a much better Hera. You know, my wife kept telling me too, like the first couple episodes, you know, came out, and then the next week came out, and she's like, I don't buy it. I don't buy it. I don't buy it. I don't see it. And I'm like, you know, I kept telling her, just wait. She'll grow on you. And by the time it was over, I was like, no, I don't think she was a great casting for that. She was a good casting, but I think they could have done better. Like Tyler was saying, I think Vanessa Marshall really did deserve that spot. And I think, you know, Ashley Eckstein deserved a spot, you know, for some kind of role in young Ahsoka. Don't get me wrong. They did a great job casting young Ahsoka too.
That was awesome.
But I really thought that they were going to bring her in. But at the same time, when you think about it, like even Anakin is voiced by different people. You know, it's not Hayden Christensen voicing Anakin in the animated stuff. So, you know, they could have brought him in to voice Clone Wars, but they didn't. They found somebody else, you know, so, and it worked for what they were doing. And I think for the most part for this series, the casting worked for all the characters, even the ones that translated over from animation, with an exception of Hera.
Oh my gosh. Your wife right there, when she says, when they go back to the Curious Run. When, that's what I love to hear. Yeah. When they go back to the Curious Run. And I just published, this is going to be a side tangent. I just published the Crimson Climb review this last week.
I'm so jealous.
And it was really good. Like I really liked it. I think one of the things I said was, this is not like some Star Wars masterpiece. Like we didn't get Lost Stars 2 here or anything. But it was, if you liked Solo, did you guys like Solo, or were you kind of...
It grew on me.
It grew on you?
Yeah.
For Solo for me was just like a fun movie to kind of like put on and enjoy myself. That's kind of what Crimson Climb was. It was just kind of like this fun book that I could pick up and read stress-free, not like Eye of Darkness that I'm reading right now, where I'm like shaking as I'm reading the pages. But like Crimson Climb is just like a really fun, like I can open this up.
Like good shaking or bad shaking?
George Mann's cooking, okay? Like
okay, good shaking then. Okay.
He's cooking. Oh, I love Solo, but anyway. But yes, okay. So Jay loves, you know, Thrawn and seeing Lars Mikkelsen in live action. And Brian, you were kind of like, you know, you would have liked to see Vanessa Marshall come in. That would have been just her voice as Hera is just phenomenal. I have like a signed it's like my prized possession. I have like a framed photo of all of the Rebel Ghost crew, signed by the voice actors. It's like my prized possession that I found on the side of the road in a garbage pile.
What?
And inside of the frame it came in is the certificate of authenticity from the place. I was just driving down and saw like a pile of stuff on the side of the road, and it was like Star Wars, and I'm like, all right, maybe I should just pull over. You know, we kind of had some people like we brought back.
Somebody either died or had a really bad breakup. That's the only thing I can think of. Or got evicted, or they got evicted. Yeah.
Their demise was my reward.
My God. What's that like to just find something like that? What's it like to be God's favorite?
Well, that happened. And like, I'm telling you, it's like that. I got like this Princess Leia. It's like like in the box like action figure from like 1980 or whatever. It's like still like in pristine condition, never been opened from like Return of the
What's it like to be
Jedi.
God's favorite?
it was this beautiful moment I will cherish forever. My buddy took it
I
with
hate
him,
you.
but it came with like full storm like trooper armor. Like we found it on Saturday. He's like putting it back together. Anyway, but it was a great day. And number 2, okay, what did not work for me? And this kind of goes to kind of a larger point that we may have talked about a little bit before. We missed out on a lot of the emotional beats of the series. Once Anakin and Ahsoka's like World Between Worlds thing ended, I felt like we missed out. Some guy really pissed off his girlfriend. I think we really, and it wasn't me for a change. And
Oh, man.
I felt like we missed out on like the second half of the show. We really missed out on a lot of the big emotional beats of the show. I felt like we never really saw Sabine and Ezra kind of talk things through. We never saw Sabine and Ahsoka kind of talk things through. We never had any, important interaction between our heroes and Thrawn, like as he's entering, the galaxy or escaping this other one. And then like Balin and Shin's departure felt a little bit hollow as well. And so my question for you, did you like the emotional beats of the episode? Did it hit for you? I know, Brian, we talked last week about how Ahsoka or Sabine using the Force fell a little flat maybe and some things like that. But did they hit for you? Were you in there the whole time? Or was there kind of maybe a decline as the show went on? What do you guys think?
Jay, you want to go first?
Yeah, I can go first. I think that like Tyler, you're hitting on something that I wouldn't say like that the emotional beats weren't there. I'd say that some things just weren't resolved like I would have liked them to have been. One of those things, like you were talking about Ezra and Sabine, they're not being like a really good moment where they're talking things out. You're absolutely right, and it's something I pointed out in my review. I think it's like episode 6, where Ezra and Sabine first meet, but she doesn't tell Ezra like the truth about how she got there. And the entire time they were talking things through, I was expecting there to be a moment where like Ezra is like, wait a minute, you surrendered to these guys? You're working with them. Like I can't. There's a possibility I might not get home. And the entire time I was waiting for that moment, and there wasn't that moment. And so I think it's almost like near the end, and it's going back to what I said earlier. There's so many like plot threads and story threads that it kind of felt like they were just kind of rushing to the finish line. And again, like I know we're saying like I know that I said earlier that I gave this show a 7.5 and I still loved it, but I think you're absolutely right. And with some of that points is that the emotional resolution just wasn't there for a few of these story threads. Again, Ezra and Sabine, Balin and Shin, their departure, that's another good one. So
like
I'm
Ahsoka
hoping
and Anakin to me, awesome. Everyone else
Yes.
with all the other emotional kind of beats, just like 6 out of 10, 5 out of 10. But
Sure. Yeah, no, and I think that a lot of that is just gonna probably be in the next season.
perhaps so. Brian, what do you think?
I'm sitting here wondering, like I'm listening to you guys talk about this, and I'm wondering if this episode or if this series wouldn't have benefited from another episode. I'm not sure, not necessarily another episode tacked on to what we got, but maybe another episode long and kind of spread things out a little bit and just kind of focused on things a little bit more here and there, so that by the time you got to the end of that 9th episode, it's where it, left off. I don't know if that would have helped or not, because I know I've seen a lot of people complaining, that it was, not a lot happened in the, last 3 episodes. Not, nothing happened really until that final. And I'm like, I get it, but I don't know if it needed another, because people don't like Andor because it was a slow burn thing, and I'm afraid, maybe an extra episode would have been detrimental to the series. I don't. Maybe it would have hurt more than helped. I don't know, but no, I think some of the beats at the end, like her grabbing the lightsaber, I think I don't remember. I think you, Tyler, brought it up last week about they shouldn't have put that moment in there. That her big coming out moment using the Force should have been her lifting Ezra up into the Chimera instead of just, basically doing what Luke did, and Empire Strikes Back. I think a couple of beats I think they were missed. They missed the streak on Guitar Hero, but I think they still got the double A. As far as, that's the only metaphor I can really think of. So they missed a couple of the streaks, but they ended up sticking the landing. So that's where I'm at with it.
It was one of those. It was like watching your favorite basketball team, your favorite football team, and they play like a really solid game. But in your heart of hearts, this team is going to disappoint me in the end. Like they're not quite good enough to compete with the best teams in the league. But you kind of just are cheering for them. But you're kind of like, yeah, all right. I want to fist pump a lot right here, but is this really the best we can do? Like for me, the big one was the Sabine and Ahsoka kind of not really talking much throughout the last few episodes. Sabine using the Force didn't really hit well with me. I would have liked to see a little bit more of that. And then I would have liked to see a little more between we got just a little taste of Hera and Jason on that end. I would have liked to see maybe what the impact on the new galaxy was. Like, are they preparing at all? Are the main galaxy, are they preparing at all after that? It was like the big trial, and that's all we get was the big trial. But overall, I really enjoyed it. It just felt like there was just a lot that could be developed, and I think, Brian, we've talked about this a lot, is I feel like Filoni could benefit just from a greater writer's room around him.
I don't disagree.
Yeah. So more people. That's what I'm saying. I know we've talked about it. We've agreed on this.
Think about what happened with George Lucas, right? For example, he directed, episode 4. Awesome. They, Irvin Kershner did 5, Marquardt did, 6. And then George Lucas became this yes man. And he did 1, 2, and 3, and you see how they were kind of received at first. You know what I mean? I mean, it took Dave Filoni kind of doing the Clone Wars to make a lot of people appreciate the prequels a lot more. But you can't just have somebody that's a yes man, because you surround yourself with people that are like, yes, Mr. Lucas, yes, Mr. Lucas. Because if I was working, and I'd be guilty of it, if I was working at Lucasfilm and I was put on Dave Filoni's team, he'd be like, we're gonna do this, and I'd be like, okay, yeah, absolutely, yes, you're absolutely right. I'm not gonna fight you at all on that, So I think he could definitely benefit from a writer's room. I think he needs to, and I think he could choose the writers. I think that'd be okay. But, just basically say, this is the overarch story I want to tell. Get me from point A to point D and don't miss B and C along the way. I definitely think he could benefit from that.
And that brings me into the thing that I did like about the show, which is the vision is there. Like the next thing that I like, the vision is there. They have a great vision, I think, for this lore expanding era, this story that is always there. It's just what are the character dynamics? What are the character development that's going to happen? And what are the stakes going to be for those characters in regard to the overall narrative around it? That's where it's lacking a little bit. It's like you said, we have point D, and point D is going to be awesome. Point A is a great place to start. And there's little tidbits in the middle, though, where it's like, I don't really feel like they've earned that, at the end. And so the vision for me is there. Do you guys agree with that? Like the vision behind that is there. That's something that was the next thing I liked.
You can tell
the vision is there.
You can tell they know where they want to go, which for once, it's weird when you're telling a story and everybody already knows the ending. It's weird, because then you're basing everything off of, well, I know we got to get here, but I don't see how this is going to line up with this, and that. It's weird when you're telling a story like that. And maybe Dave Filoni shot himself in the foot by announcing. Maybe they shot themselves in the foot by announcing he was doing a movie first before Ahsoka came out. Maybe that's where they messed up. Maybe they should have waited for Ahsoka to get done, and then at the end of that, be like, oh, by the way, Dave Filoni's doing an Heir to the Empire movie, and everybody be like, oh, what? You know, so
Maybe like they have like a post-credit scene in
Yeah.
there, and then they do the whole announcement thing.
Yeah.
That could have been fun.
and maybe it would have landed different, but like you said, we know the ending, so it's like getting through. It's like when episode 1 came out, right? We knew Anakin had to become Darth Vader, but then we're like, Vader's 9. Like he's hitting on a 14-year-old queen. Like, okay, this is weird. What's up with the Jar Jar guy? You know, but like we ended up getting to that point, and you know, it was, I mean, it missed a couple beats along the way, but we got there. But we knew the ending. We didn't know how the ending was going to happen, but we knew it was there. And it's weird when you tell stories that way, and that seems to be a really big thing that happens in Star Wars quite a bit.
Jay, was the vision there for you? Did you at least capture the vision? Because I think Filoni's really good at that, like, vision casting aspect.
100%. I mean, I think that what a great point, actually, Tyler. I commend you on that, because I didn't really think about that. But now that you mention it, we haven't really had a good overall arching vision for Star Wars in a very long time. This is actually the first time where I'm like, I actually agree. Like, I think Star Wars has more projects down the line that I'm really excited for. And you know, like before, we didn't have a whole lot to be excited for. You know, when you just had a bunch of other directors and other visionaries just coming in and just doing their own thing.
There's like a meme on Twitter of like all the people that have been in other projects and just disappeared into the heavens.
Yeah, right.
Because of creative differences.
Taika Waititi.
That's a good point. That's such a good point, Jay. Like,
He's getting dragged up.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that really like you know, the first thing that came to my mind when you brought up this point, Tyler, the shot of Dathomir and of Thrawn and the Night Sisters going to Dathomir. When I saw that, you know, in the last episode, I got super excited because I was like, oh, we're going places. You know, we're actually going and seeing things. We're gonna go and see live action, like more live action Night Sisters. We're gonna see like live action Dathomir. I know it's a place that we've been to before in Star Wars and in Jedi Fallen Order and the original Clone Wars, but there's so much potential there. And then so, you know, again, great point, Tyler, because I think that now, I actually am excited for the future of Star Wars because of this.
And I think, like Brian said earlier, Filoni's always nailed the vision. It's just I'm worried though that if we have more projects where the vision is still there, there's only so long where you can be like, well, the vision is going to be great before it feels like a little bit hollow in between to the point where you're stretched a little bit, like too much. And that gets me into like the next negative point that I want to talk about, which is I felt like the show at times was so vague on some aspects of it, of where we were going, that it actually detracted from, you know, the excitement around that thing. Because, like, for instance, you know, Balin and what he's after is such a big deal. And obviously we're going to get into that probably in future stories.
Right.
But they, from the very beginning of the show, first couple episodes, the first 2 episodes, he was talking about finding Thrawn the absolute power, and they were going to find this power. And we still have no idea even what that's going to look like at the end of the first season. And we just got these little tidbits of just kind of vague metaphors. It's almost like if you've ever watched the reality TV show Survivor. So sometimes the tribal councils on these episodes where they have to vote someone out, and Jeff, the host, is trying to get them to kind of talk and share some of their gameplay. And sometimes the players are so scared of sharing gameplay, they use these weird metaphors to kind of describe what's going on. It kind of felt like throughout the show sometimes, with even Ahsoka and Sabine talking about, you know, what's going on between the two of them. And with Balin, we it was so vague that we actually, you know, never ended up getting that much. And it just kind of felt like you're just being strung along. I don't know what you guys think. Did it hit enough for you? Are you okay with the intrigue? Or were you of like, okay, let's get a little bit more here in between?
No, Tyler, I completely agree with you. And this is like, I had this sentiment kind of like I don't want to look, I don't want to bash the series again too hard because I did enjoy it. But I think that you kind of do hit a point, and I brought this up in my review of episode 6, and it was a little bit more on like it's funny because that episode 6 was a little bit more on the negative side. And it was one of the first reviews that we posted, which actually did kind of like criticize a little bit, like the show a little bit more, kind of push back against it. And I think you're like you bring up a good point, and you said like stringing along. I'd say it's a little bit like a carrot on the end of a stick.
Mhm.
You know that there's something big on the end, on the end of the line. But the thing is, like part of me was actually kind of exhausted just watching the show because I'm like, okay, like come on, like I want to get to the next thing, right? And the thing about about Ahsoka was like, it's like after every episode, it's like, oh, I gotta wait another week, oh, I got another episode. We gotta get through another episode before we get to the next thing. So that's the thing of, and I wonder, like again, I really liked the show and I thought it did a lot of great stuff. But I think that in my head when I was watching it was the diehard fans are gonna stick with the show no matter what. They're gonna stick with Star Wars no matter what. I'm wondering, what about all those a little bit more casual and a little bit more maybe exhausted, who maybe haven't tuned in for every single thing that's been put out there. And I
Right.
think there's a lot of people who have watched Ahsoka, who've never watched the Clone Wars, who've never watched Rebels, who probably are a little bit like on that side of like, okay, I haven't watched Clone Wars, I haven't watched Rebels, and then can I even like that there's a lot to follow, there's a lot to watch, and there's a lot to keep up with. I'm wondering like,
Hey, I did it in a summer once. Come on now, people. What's your excuse
right?
here?
Yeah, I mean,
Who
us
needs a
diehards,
social life when you can just binge watch Disney Plus
right?
animated content?
Us diehards are gonna stick with it no matter what.
So my girlfriend,
We're
sorry,
crazy
babe,
like that.
we can't go out for date night tonight. I got episodes 5 through 8 to watch because Meeber's about to go meet Gregor that we talked about at the beginning of the show, and it's like it's time to dive in.
So
Brian
yeah,
did. Thanks, Jay. Brian,
Oh, yeah.
what do you think? Too hollow?
I think
big?
you both need to lay off the death sticks. I think you're both hired in hell because I've always enjoyed a slow burn story. I've always enjoyed it a lot. And Ahsoka is not the end game. Okay, Ahsoka is not not to use the term again, but Ahsoka is not the end all be all of this story. It was just the very middle part. It's just the beginning. We still probably have another season of Ahsoka, and then season 4 of Mando, and something else before we even get to this Dave Filoni movie, which is going to be the big payoff. That's the Avengers Endgame. Okay, look what the MCU did. The MCU did 23 movies before you got to the big epic thing at the end.
A ton of them sucked.
And you're not wrong. But there were times, where I'm sure people sat back and go, we still have to watch 3 more movies until Endgame comes out. Like, are you serious? Like, or until Infinity War? When they start announcing 7, 8 movies at a time, you're like, God, we have to get through all of these before we get to like what we really want to see, what they teased at the beginning, right? We're on a journey. And sometimes when you're on a journey, you're walking through just barren wasteland where there's nothing really to look at, but you have to get through it to get to the rolling hills and the things you want to see to get to the destination that's going to be this epic movie of Heir to the Empire. That's where I'm at. It's the journey, not necessarily the end of it.
So I agree.
I didn't think it was
I agree, but I agree. I love a slow burn. Like Andor was awesome for me because I loved the development. But here's the thing with Andor is it was the slow burn, but each episode there was something weighted that happened to those characters and to where the stakes for that character were raised like each episode. With Ahsoka, we'd get like a little hint from Balin about this power that he's seeking, especially in episode 6 when he's talking to Shin about the Jedi Order and reminiscing about it, and then he's on his journey. And so episode 7, I think everyone was like, all right, we're probably going to learn a little bit more. It felt like, I'm okay with the slow burn, but we should at least take the next step. And then in episode 7, he shows up for, barely any time. And he just says, all right, You are on your own now. I'll see you later. And we're kind of like, wait, Sean, who's on? They're on their own now. Like, where are you going? And then he just kind of does his thing with Ahsoka, and then he's gone. And I felt like slow burn is great, but when you don't advance like those little
Mhm.
steps, where like it's like he's stepping and he's hopping from like stone to stone instead of like we're slowly moving across like the river versus we're hopping and there's like this gap in between of like, well, there's probably something I would have liked to have filled in, and then they didn't. Like, it's not like they announced before this season that it was like this is season one of another one that's coming or
Mhm.
everything. And so we have this movie that is coming, but the slow burn too there. It's hard to connect those dots when they're not just flat out like we're going to do
Yeah.
these seasons. It's kind of like with Andor, they did say we're doing 2 seasons and this is the arcs that's going to play out. Like we already
Mhm.
know season 2 is going to be like, what is it? It's like 12 episodes again, and it's going to
Yeah.
be like 4. It's like going to be like 3 arcs basically,
Yeah.
all like
Right. And
1
then
year
leads right into
apart.
Rogue One.
And
Yeah.
these like they're very clear about it. Now that's different. It's a prequel to a movie we
Mhm.
have,
Right.
but with Ahsoka, yes, it's leading up to this movie. But if you're so hollow to the point where the stakes are kind of being lost,
Yeah.
for me, that's kind of how I felt a little bit, because I love the slow burn. I can wait 10
Maybe they
years for
shouldn't.
Star Wars.
Maybe they shouldn't have announced that Dave Filoni movie yet. Maybe they shouldn't. Maybe they should have held those cards a little closer to the chest and just let plan it by all means. Let him know he's going to be doing it by all means, but keep them
Mhm.
cards close to the chest and just let us kind of see how it plays out. Maybe that would have been the better thing to do.
When do you think the plans changed? Because if you remember back in like
Yeah.
2019, when they announced this Ahsoka thing, they announced it as a limited series.
Yeah.
Like, this is a limited, like,
Well,
one-time series. There's like a limited series they announced.
no, because
In that Kathleen Kennedy
yeah,
video.
in that same video though, if you watch it when she announces Ahsoka and at the time Rangers of the New
Mhm.
Republic, when she announced them, she said during that same video that the whole like what we're calling the Mandoverse, that whole
Right.
era would culminate into one massive event, one crossover
Yes.
event. She said that during
That's
the
true.
thing. So she said right then and there that they were going to be, but we all thought it was going to be television, some huge, massive television special, that was going to cross everything over. I don't think any of us really thought it was going to be a movie. So the night before they announced the Dave Filoni thing, I had a bird whisper in my ear that was probably going to be a thing. But I didn't know it was going to be the crossover thing. And I guess looking back now, I should have known. But I don't know if they should have announced that just yet. Maybe Kathleen Kennedy should have left, well enough alone and just say big crossover event. And then just kind of made everybody guess. And then somewhere down the line, just, I guess, drop this massive announcement that Dave Filoni was, maybe even at the end of season 2 of Ahsoka, give us 2 seasons of Ahsoka. And then at the end of that, maybe even Mando when Thrawn gets back there, and maybe at the end of Mando season 4. Wouldn't it be awesome? And there's no way they'd have ever been able to do it. It would have been impossible in today's day and age. But actually get enough done on the movie where they had a trailer and nobody knew about it. And then drop it. There's no way. But can you imagine how that would have hit? Like just this massive movie trailer of Heir to the Empire at the end of
They
Mando
could have
season
done
4.
well here. The way they do that is they have like on the set for the show. They have some of the couple of the characters that are going to be in the movie, like Ahsoka or Mando or something, and you just have some like filming done on set during those shows, and you just like a kind of like a quick cut where you got 20 seconds, boom. That's probably the only way it could happen. I feel like this whole vague thing is actually like a really good like parallel to what Lucasfilm and Star Wars is doing right now in terms of how they promote and market like their stuff, where they're very vague and tight-lipped about everything and they don't want anyone to know. And then it gets leaked through all of these other things and we find out, oh, the Dave Lindelof movie. And then tomorrow we, get on our phones, we wake up, it's like, oh, Dave Lindelof is no longer on a movie, but it's never actually comes from Lucasfilm. Jay, give us the final word on this conversation and we will move on.
All right, final word. I think that, just in general though, like overall, we all came away liking the show. I know that
Mhm.
we actually like
Mhm.
had a lot of negative criticisms, but I think that these, like I mentioned in my review, are gonna be addressed. And I think, like you said earlier, Brian, that most of Dave Filoni stuff really ages well.
Mhm.
So I think that in this period of time, I think we're kind of it like and I think this is just the case with a lot of Star Wars. When you're in the middle of like a series or in the middle of a trilogy, I felt
Mhm.
this way when I first watched The Force Awakens. I was like, I'm not really into this. After like going into, and like watching it as a whole, I kind of came away being like, you know what? This is actually pretty good. So I think that we're all in agreement that, again, Ahsoka is a really great show. There's a lot going for it. There's a few things that we would have liked to have improved upon, and
Of course.
hopefully that in the future, Dave Filoni and crew can go ahead and improve upon it and hit it out of the park with the inevitable, quote unquote, heir to the Empire movie in the near future.
That's what he's gonna title it. I guarantee it.
There's
I
no
guarantee
way.
it.
There's no
Yeah.
way.
No, he's going to. He's
It's
gonna
too.
do it.
It's too on the. Well, even for
No,
Dave
he's gonna do
Filoni,
it.
it's too on the nose. I feel
He's gonna
like.
do it.
Oh man, that comes up. We should have a show soon where we just talk about like the debate between what's going to happen first, like the Ray or the Mando movie, and what should happen first
Oh, it'll
between
be
the
the
two.
Ray.
Either. I don't know. I feel like the best bet is to do Mando first, but
I don't disagree with you,
yeah,
but I know how it's gonna end up going.
yeah.
It's
So
gonna be the new Jedi Order first.
I don't know, babe. They got so much invested in this Mando stuff right now.
I'd be happy if they just canceled that movie and was just like, we don't need to know what happened after Rise of Skywalker. You can tell Paul I said that too.
No,
You can tell
no.
him I said that.
We don't have time to argue about this tonight. All right, everyone. We can stay on for the bonus PS episode that's going to come on after this, which is the Rey Skywalker debate. No. All right. Real quick, thanks y'all for the chat tonight. It was awesome. I love, kind of wrapping a bow on, some of the broader Ahsoka topics. So that way, like in the future, we can start diving into maybe some of the more niche stuff just for fun. Great show. Had a lot of fun. I missed Ahsoka Tano Tuesdays this week. It was so sad to not have some new Star Wars this week. Brian, where can we find you? Give us an update as we get out of here.
You guys can find me on my show every week, the Star Wars Canon Podcast. Me and my co-host Yusuf Wally, we hit the news stories. We talk about a couple of news stories. He's doing what we're calling a villain bracket right now. You guys get to vote on which villain you think is cooler. We've been putting this bracket together for quite a while. You guys can vote on our Facebook page and our YouTube channel. So head over there. You guys can vote multiple times too, as long as you visit them both. See how you force traffic to social media. It works really well. Go check that out. You guys can check out our website, StarWarsCanon.net, where we're putting together the entire timeline. The entire Legends timeline is already there. We're just trying to get the canon one updated now. Keeping it updated while putting it together is a pain, but we're getting it there. So definitely head over and check that out.
Dope. What about you, Jay?
Man, Brian, every single week that like I'm here and then you provide updates, I'm always super excited. I'm always super excited. I'm always super jealous that I'm like, what do I got going on in my life? I don't know. I took a nap today.
I gotta get you guys on I gotta get you guys on the podcast.
I'd love to. But no, you can find me on Star Wars News Ed. I'll be doing more articles coming up, more reviews as well for books and comics. And I have a new editorial I'm working on at the moment, covering Enoch, Captain Enoch from the Ahsoka series. Really excited
The new
to do that.
Phasma.
Oh man, don't.
We didn't.
Sorry, I'm just
like
chucking
excited.
pipe bombs in while
I'll
we're
be
trying
honest,
to end
right.
the show.
we did not get into my number one dislike thing, which was crazy fan theories that drove me insane online. That was my final one. That was my
That
final
would've been
dislike.
fun, yeah.
That would have been fun. But alas,
There will be another day.
right.
They won't go away. I'll tell you, they're not going to go
No.
away. So we got plenty of time.
Love
Anyway,
it.
sorry, Jay. Continue.
Oh no, that's what
Yeah.
I got so far. So I'll throw it back to you, Tyler.
I'm excited to see like I want to see Enoch do something kind of like what we wanted Phasma to kind of do in the sequel. Just some not like big bag kind of stuff, but like, just be a ruthless, warlord's
Something.
henchman. Like just a ruthless
Anything.
warlord's henchman, like that classic, second in command, kind of
Yeah.
like how
Do a
you
trick,
have
sing a song, something.
this is High Republic. I'm so High Republic everything, but like Mark and Rose, the Eye, but then you have like the Tempest Runners and those people, like they're just ruthless, like we'll just do it. And I would love to see Enoch do something like that, and then get his head chopped off by a lightsaber. It'd be great. You can find me on Twitter at TyBrad5. I tweet about Star Wars, movies, and sports pretty much exclusively. So if you like those three things, you'll probably like, chatting with me on there. So it's pretty chill. Basketball season starting, up now. So I'm going to probably be a little bit annoying every time. Like I'm watching a game, it goes into overtime. I have a special gift that I tweet out. This guy like rubbing mayonnaise on his chest. It's really awkward. Just hits home. Just hits different.
Did you say rubbing mayonnaise on his chest?
Yes.
Like, oh my God. It's good for the hair.
It's
good
really
chest
uncomfortable.
hair.
I just published my Crimson Climb review. If you like Kira, if you like Solo, if you love Crime Syndicate stuff in Star Wars, this will be the book for you to kind of just have some fun. I am not a big Crime Syndicate person. Like coming into this, I really couldn't have cared less about those stories. I left reading the book kind of more excited for a potential like Crimson Dawn Crime Syndicate thing with Kira and Maul. And I love Kira, so I was so excited. That book was just a lot of fun from start to finish. Easy read. I feel like it reads close to like the Rise of the Red Blade book that Jay reviewed, where it's nothing like, it's not this groundbreaking like story, but it's just a really fun like book to have on your shelf. So I recommend that. I just reviewed Shadows of Starlight, which is kind of our first comic back into the High Republic. I don't know if you guys read it or not, but
just finished Wave 2 comics.
It was a massive issue, like a massive comic to start everything off. There's so much there to unpack. I unpacked it all. It was a long comic review because they really did like set the stage for what's coming. So that's there. We'll be doing, all things High Republic here over the next several months as we gear up for Eye of Darkness, which comes out. And I'm about, I believe, like 23% of the way through the book. So we're about a quarter of the way through. So yep, everything on Star Wars Newsnet for your Star Wars news. And Brian, send us out.
Hey, as always, guys, may the Force be with you.